So I'm super excited to announce our next speaker, Shaleena Tareen. She is here with us as a first-time presenter, and I'm super excited about that. She's been in the field of early childhood education for over 25 years, during which she has been a preschool teacher, owned and operated her own child care center, conducted parent and need classes, and directed private school and Head Start programs in LA, California. She has a bachelor's degree in business and is also a Montessori certified educator, which is so cool. And she speaks 3 languages and is an ASL signer. That is all in just what I said, truly amazing. We are so honored to have her with us today. Shaleena is the author of The Learning Steps, a book about growth mindset for young children, and has also written parenting articles for the LA Parent magazine. She is the founder of Childhood Matters, a company that advocates for the mental health of young children. She is extremely passionate about early childhood programs and curriculum and its significance on the development of young children. So I am super excited to have you here with us today, Shaleena. So the floor is yours, and everyone sit back and have a great time.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I will be talking about supporting children's mental health in the classroom today. We, as you know, need to address this more than ever today. And the earlier we begin to do this, the better it is. But before I begin with the presentation, I just want to share a little bit about my journey from being an early childhood educator and a director in the field to becoming an early childhood mental health advocate, and then finally founding Childhood Matters. As we all experience this day in and day out, children in our care experience a range of emotions, right? Many tied to their own personal experiences in their lives. How do we support them through these difficult moments? And how do we equip children in our care to be able to self-regulate? I, in my years, have had numerous parents and educators come to me and ask me how to prepare a child for an upcoming event, or to begin a conversation about a difficult topic, or even how to support the child through a big life transition. At that time, I would, just go to the library and pick up a book and, give it to them and, hope that they would be able to start a conversation from there. But it was actually during the pandemic that I was really thinking about this. And I knew that there had to be more than, handing them a book, and books are great, but I know that there's more than that. So I wanted to create a space where, they are able to find resources all in one place, in one toolkit. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at all the tools that we can give children and even families to help them feel safe and secure in their own bodies. So let's take a look at the objectives that we are going to be looking at today. We are going to try to understand what early childhood mental health refers to. We're going to explore ways to support children's mental health in the very early years. How to help children manage big emotions through using coping strategies, and then using play, mindfulness, ecotherapy, bibliotherapy, sensory integration, and art to help children cope with their big feelings and their life transitions. So what is early childhood mental health? Early childhood mental health refers to the social, emotional, and behavioral well-being of children from birth to 5 years. Some examples include anxiety disorders, ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, depression, mood disorders, even eating disorders, and PTSD. Of course, it's going to look a little bit different, in each child. It depends on the individual child themselves, their family, their community, where they come from, and of course their culture as well. So here, there's a little bit of data that you see, and it was actually quite surprising to me when I see these numbers, where there's an estimate that 9.5 to 14% of children from birth to age 5 experience emotional and behavioral disturbances, and 85% of children that are in Head Start with identified behavior health needs do not receive the help that they need. We see a list right there of early childhood mental health providers. And many of us today here are in the ECE field. Are you surprised to see that you're on a list of a mental health provider along with psychologists, policymakers? Well, we are on that list. And along with families, we are actually the first identifiers. We then partner with all the others that are on the list to get children the services that they need and then support their treatment as best as we can. But do we feel trained? Do we feel trained to be in this role? Well, when we ask this to many teachers out there, only 1 in 5 teachers actually feel that they feel equipped or they have the training for this, and only 34% of teachers believe that they have the skills necessary to actually address students' mental health needs. As ECE educators, we've always been taught 3 basic things, right? Observe the child, document what you're observing, and then report that. And as much as you want to help, children with mental health conditions will require the assessment and support of multiple professionals involving a trained physician, therapists, social workers, so that they're able to develop an IEP or an individualized education program with the child's family. So today, we're not going to be going into any details about supporting specific behavioral or mental health disorders. However, we are going to talk about how children's general mental health, regardless of them having a diagnosis or not, and how we can support them in many ways. So I'm going to ask you, can children get stressed? Do they experience anxiety? Yes. Children can absolutely experience stress and anxiety. Children experience stress just like adults, just like us. When they start a new school, welcoming a new sibling, navigating through a chronic illness themselves maybe, or even of a family member, a loss of a pet, death of a loved one, a divorce or separation of parents, or even simply moving to a new home. These are all big events in a child's life. These significant life transitions are not always easy to face. Observing the behavior of an anxious child is like looking at the tip of an iceberg. Underlying the anxious behavior are layers of emotions and experiences, and some of these come out in behaviors like anger or difficulty sleeping at night, defiance, avoidance, a lack of focus in things that they do. So, we see one thing, we see the child is, showing a behavior, but we don't understand that there are underlying reasons for that behavior. So we're going to watch a video right now, and this video defines mental health and well-being and highlights the importance of good mental health in the early years. This video also covers the kind of things that you might notice when a child is experiencing good mental health and what you would observe if they were experiencing some difficulties.
Early childhood mental health is described as a young child's ability to experience, regulate and express their emotions, form close and secure relationships, explore their environment, and learn. They do this in the context of their family, community, and cultural experiences. Children who have difficulty managing their emotions, exploring their surroundings, and building positive relationships are more likely to experience greater challenges throughout their lives that may persist well into adulthood.
Early childhood mental health it's almost surprisingly important in the early years because it's a foundation for so much of what constitutes emotional health and social well-being thereafter. It's a really critical developmental period. So they're moving from the world of their very intimate social relationships within their families to a much wider world, and that's where it all starts.
The early years set children up for the rest of their life. And there are very key experiences that children need to have early on in order for the right connections, if you like, to develop, which lay the foundation for later functioning throughout childhood and into adulthood. And so the brain grows incredibly rapidly in the first few years and it's quite extraordinary how much is going on in the brain in the early years.
So how do you know when children, their families and early childhood educators are experiencing good mental health? I think it's a question often about participation. So when children are doing well in terms of their mental health, they're really engaged in the environment that they're learning. So they start the day and you notice that the child has actually got energy. They're connecting. They connect with other kids, they connect with teachers or the educators that they're interacting with. So, and then you also notice that through the day, they manage the ups and downs of things. The early childhood years and having good mental health, it's a time when so many of the foundations of a child's life are being set down. So you want a child's early experiences socially, for example, to be ones where they can start to form friendships. They can work out how to resolve the challenges of sharing, of sharing friendships, of working together. Those early experiences are foundations for children being able to go on and make and form good friendships as they get older. They're learning about all the strong emotions they have within themselves, all the different emotions they have in themselves, the changing emotions they have within themselves. So they're starting to make connections between their feeling inside and the language they can use to describe that. And that process is a really critical process because it helps a child to understand in their mind and their brain what's happening inside in their emotional world. But those early experiences really lay foundations for a child's expectations about what life will be like and really start to foster their way of relating to people so that they actually they trust that teachers will look out for them and care for them and nurture their needs and show them the joys of the things happening around them. And I think those early years, those foundations are just really, really key for setting them up for what will happen in the next few steps.
If we've got a good, safe, secure environment that provides challenge and interest to a child, we can see good mental health in the child by seeing that they are open to new things without becoming too overwhelmed, that they can calm down with some help. A 6-month-old baby needs a lot more help than an 18-month-old. They can use the supportive relationships to help them calm down without becoming overwhelmed.
So what that means is that anything we do in the early years that actually promotes any of the different facets of children's development is going to have lifelong implications for their positive development and growth, but also the absence of intervention is where you often see the foundations for problems. And the absence of intervention means that you're missing some fantastic opportunities. And when I talk with families, I always talk about the idea that if you get involved early, it's a time when you can quite easily shift children off a pathway where they maybe were heading down the pathway towards some mental health difficulties. But it's a time when a little bit of change, a little bit of tweaking in the way parents and carers and early childhood educators are working and interacting with a child can lead to some really quite different ways that the child might react and respond.
When early childhood educators are mindful of children's mental health, then the decisions that they make every day, which are numerous, start to be informed by that knowledge. So they start to be able to make a decision around routines and arrivals and group times and experiences inside and outside that have, if you like, a flavour of supporting children's mental health. Those decisions start to be shaped by our mindfulness of the way that children experience them through their emotions and their social interconnections. And in all of those decisions, elements of belonging start to be manifest. And that means that it becomes very real for children and it becomes something that they embed into their daily practice and their daily encounter of the life that they're leading.
It's important for all educators in a service to understand what mental health is about, what it means, how it relates to children's well-being in general. I think in the service philosophy statement, I think it goes back to that, if you take your philosophy statement really seriously, that it needs to be absolutely front and center, that the main concern of the service, no matter where it is, what type of service it is children's mental health or children's well-being.
Okay, so how do we best nurture young children to thrive in the world, especially at a time in history when they're experiencing so much trauma around them? The answer for me is SEL, or social emotional learning. While SEL and mental health are really not the same, but SEL can promote positive mental health in so many ways. Beginning early in life, social and emotional learning is highly important for children, for helping preschool children understand and manage their emotions, feel and show empathy for others, establish healthy relationships, and then also make responsible decisions. Teaching social and emotional competency does not need to be an add-on curriculum where you're working extra hard now. It is just ideal to be proactive and intentional when you're teaching them. And why does that matter? Why does it matter to teach children SEL? Well, children who develop good social and emotional skills make friends easier. They understand and express their emotions. They are ready for the school experience. And they also think critically and are ready to learn new things. So how do we build emotional resilience in children? First step, exploring their emotions. Just like any other skill that is vital to healthy social and emotional development in a child, learning how to identify and cope with emotions needs to be supported and encouraged. We can foster children's emotional literacy by, firstly, teaching them how to name emotions. So say you have a child who is in the reading area and is reading a book and has a little brother who's also in the same classroom, and the baby brother has taken the child's book and ripped the picture. And now the child is obviously upset, mad, perhaps. So you can go up to the child and say, "You are mad. Baby brother ripped your picture and you are mad." Right? You're giving them the vocabulary that what you're feeling inside you is called being mad. In the same way, say you have a child who just got dropped off and grandma just left, and the child is really sad that grandma left and is probably crying. You can go up and say, "You're sad. Grandma left and you didn't want her to leave. You feel so, so sad." Again, you're giving a word to the feeling that this child is experiencing. Once you're done with that, you will now normalize this emotion. Let's go back to the grandma example. You can tell the child, "When grandma left this morning, you felt very sad. You kicked, you cried. You wanted grandma to stay and play with you. Everybody feels sad sometimes. I feel sad when grandma left too. I like talking with her and watching her read books to you. It's sad when people say goodbye. Do you want to draw a picture for her?" Now, what have you done here? You are telling the child that, yes, you are feeling sad, and it's completely normal to feel the way that you're feeling. Even I feel sad sometimes. Okay, and then you're also giving them a strategy that, hey, do you want to make a picture? That way you're telling the child that you are going to be reconnecting with your grandma later on today. And then finally, we will discuss some strategies with the child. What can you do? If a child is struggling with an emotion such as this child, help them verbalize how they're feeling and both what they can do and what they can do. Such as you can say, "When I'm mad, I can't hit my brother, but I can stomp my feet or squeeze my ball." Give them a little, squishy ball to squeeze. The next time this child is feeling this emotion, they know exactly what to go to, what their coping strategy is going to be. You can even introduce strategies through fun things like songs and poems. Here's a poem that I wrote to teach children the difference between positive and negative coping skills. I'm going to read it out to you. It goes something like that. I am sad. I want to cry. I don't know what to do. I can listen to some music and paint a picture or two. I am angry. This is not fair. Should I yell and storm away? Let's try to take some deep breaths and find a game to play. I'm scared. My heart is racing. This feeling I can't ignore. I could talk to someone or write in my journal some more. I'm worried. What will happen? This is so hard to bear. Let's take a walk outside and breathe in some fresh air. Right here, you're just telling them it's okay to feel the way you're feeling, but there are ways to overcome the feelings, and here are some positive ways of doing so. So I have, during the course of this presentation, like 1-minute videos of me talking and explaining things. I thought I'll give it a little break from like listening to my voice and looking at me here. It's just a different version of me. But here I am going to be talking about how you can have conversations with children about how they're feeling.
Let's talk about feelings today. Children, particularly young children, do not have the experience or the vocabulary to express exactly how they are feeling. So let's try to help them out. Try associating feelings with colors. For example, green when feeling scared and worried, red when feeling mad and angry, blue when feeling sad, and yellow when feeling happy. Ask your child, what color are you feeling today? Where in your body are you feeling this color? Ask them how big is their feeling. Is it as big and tall as a mountain? Is it medium-sized like a chair? Or is it as small as a button? Ask them if they could touch their feeling, how would it feel? Would it be soft or would it be hard? Would it feel bumpy or prickly or swirly? Ask, what else would you like to say about your feeling today?
So on the screen, you are going to see a behavior chart and a feelings chart. And, some of us do use the behavior chart, and I strongly encourage switching that around with the feelings chart. It really helps to understand where a child's behavior is stemming from. Knowing how a child is feeling opens up conversations with this child. For instance, say during the course of the day, a child has changed his name clip from the happy to the sad. Now you've noticed that change, and you can address this change and find out maybe the child is missing dad who is away on a work trip. Now you're able to validate how this child is feeling. You're able to provide comfort and a strategy to help the child manage this emotion before this child uses a negative coping skill, which may display in form of a negative behavior. So you're catching it right there just by finding out how this child is feeling. Children have much fewer tools in their toolbox to help control big feelings. And in order to provide them with new tools, we need to put in some time and words to show them that we are there for them and we will help them get through this. So say, for instance, a child comes to you and says, I'm feeling scared, So if you were right, they're going to say, oh, there's nothing to be scared of. Try switching it and saying, you're validating them. You are scared. I'm here with you. Right away, the child is feeling safe with you. They know you're there to help them get over this feeling. Or if a child comes to you and says, I'm worried about so-and-so, instead of saying, don't worry about it, say, looks like you're worried. Do you want to take some deep breaths with me? Right there, you're giving them a strategy to help them feel better. Positive social skills are protective factors for mental health. The good news is that we can help children develop these skills by teaching children emotional identification and management, mindfulness, coping skills, communication skills, and relaxation techniques. In this video, I'll explain why using coping strategies is so beneficial.
Just like we need to teach our children how to identify and express their feelings, we must also teach them how to cope or manage with them. Learning to manage our emotions begins when we are young and continues throughout our lives. By helping children learn healthy coping techniques early on and practicing them, we are helping them build resilience and setting them up for success. If practicing coping skills becomes a part of children's daily lives, they are more likely to use them without even realizing it.
Yep, those coping skills just come automatically then, it's just become second nature to them. Children will experience a variety of different emotions as they live and play in the world. They need coping skills to help them manage their feelings in a safe and healthy way. But there's no one-size-fits-all strategy, right? Not all skills will work for all children that are in your classroom, or not one strategy will work every time. That's the strategy that will work will always be different. It will depend on the emotion the child is feeling, where they are they in the classroom? Are they out at the playground? Even, from home to a restaurant, a field trip. And of course, their personal preference, children prefer one coping strategy over another one. So we're gonna dive into a coping strategy that I love using, which is mindfulness. But before we do that, we're going to do a quick little mindfulness activity amongst ourselves. So for that, if you have a paper and pen close to you, grab that. If not, totally okay. You can totally use your finger and use your palm as the paper, okay? So what we're going to do here is we are going to take the piece of paper and pencil or pen, or even your hand and your finger. You will start with putting your pen in the middle of the paper, and you will take deep breaths in and out. As you breathe in, you will draw a line. Just keep the pen glued to the paper, and as you breathe out, you will draw another line. So it's kind of continuous, but it can go in any direction as you breathe in and out. Remember, as you breathe in, think of happy and peaceful thoughts, and as you breathe out, let go of any negative emotion you're feeling. Okay, so we're going to do it for about 30 seconds. You can use your finger, like I said, or you can use your pen and paper. So let's get started. Okay, we can stop drawing our breaths, as I like to call it. Now, as you focused on this activity, you were focusing on your breathing. You were mindful of the present. You were letting go of negative feelings, taking in positive ones. And you know what you were doing? You were regulating your nervous system. And also, you were making a little bit of a artwork right there with your breathing. So thank you so much for participating. Let's talk a little bit about how to, do some mindfulness with children in the classrooms. We've talked a lot today about helping children learn about emotions. Now, when children understand how emotions work, they are able to name their emotions, and they, in fact, know what emotion they're experiencing. They can now learn to calm down and reflect. And one way they can learn to do that is through mindfulness. In this video, I will talk about some mindfulness tools you can use with your children in your care.
Mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment. When we teach children mindfulness, we equip them with tools to manage stress, build self-esteem, and skillfully approach challenges. Try simple breathing exercises with your child, such as smell the flower and blow out the candle. You can also use the pinwheel for this exercise. You can try box breathing with your children, where you take a square and your child just traces the outline of the square and breathes in and out. Read mindfulness books with your children, such as I Am Peace or ABC Mindful Me. These are great books. Try some simple yoga poses with your child or some mindful meditation exercises. These practices will help your child regulate their emotions and will also help them improve their executive functions.
I also love using bubbles as a way to teach children how to do that deep breathing. Children just love having props with them as they learn these new techniques. So if you are teaching them how to deep breathe, you can definitely go to these props like the pinwheel that I've shown you, or even bubbles. Another thing that I love using with children is ecotherapy, which is basically just nature therapy. Using the outdoors to regulate is an amazing coping strategy for children. Exposure to nature has shown to reduce stress and increase attention spans in children. When a child is out in nature, all their senses get activated. I always say that the color of happiness just might be green. I mean, we as adults, we love that. We go out and we feel the sense of calm as we are in the outdoors. So it's amazing both for adults and children. So it's no secret that body and mind are connected, right? Time spent outside has positive effects on our physical and mental well-being. This leads to better mental health outcomes in children. Ecotherapy gives children exposure to vitamin D, an open environment outdoors where they can be themselves, they can really express themselves freely. And the way that nature helps them in so many ways, I've just put down 6 right here. It helps them release stress. It really restores their attention, helps them develop self-discipline, builds confidence. You know, they're taking risks out there, jumping off something, climbing other things, increases physical fitness. Children are on the screen so much now. When we let them go out, they're actually, you know, using their gross motor skills. Also, nature settings do promote creativity, right? The nature is our playground. There's so many experiences that the children can gain just by using materials that are offered by nature. Some things that you can do when you're outdoors with children is go for a nature sensory walk or an outdoor scavenger hunt, even take books outside or your painting activities, give them rocks to balance, practice outdoor yoga and meditation, or even gardening. Children love to plant, watch the plants grow, water them. One thing that I love using is grounding exercises outdoors, especially, you know, when you are, say, your children are getting dropped off in the morning and a child is experiencing separation anxiety and you're in the playground. You can do a grounding exercise like the rainbow grounding. Oh, what are 5 things that you can see around you that are red? What are 4 things that are yellow that you can see around you? So just going through all the colors and letting them identify, great distraction and great coping mechanism. You can also do the very basic grounding exercise with the 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch. So these are different things that you can use outdoors with children to really center themselves. Art. Art is a coping tool. We all have art centers in our classrooms, lots of art materials at home. We can help children use this as a coping tool. It is a medium through which children can express their suppressed emotions that they may not be aware of. They may have difficulty expressing their emotions in words, but those same feelings can be conveyed through creative mediums. So we're going to take a look at this little activity that a child did, right? Here is an example of how art can help children express emotions. And this is by no means a process art experience. It's not supposed to be, right? This particular one, of course, you can use process art also to help children express their emotions. But this particular one, it helps us understand how this child is feeling and also gives the child an opportunity to communicate that with us without using words. Now you can pretty much offer a paper and some crayons to a child and they'll be able to perhaps draw something, and then you can start a conversation with the child like, you know, I see you drawn this, or can you tell me a little bit about your picture? And again, this helps start those important conversations which might have never even come up if you hadn't given that child that opportunity to use art as a medium to have a conversation. So art allows children to process the things that have happened to them and helps reduce stress and anxiety as they work through these challenges. And it does not always have to be coloring or painting. You can use clay and Play-Doh, even writing songs or poems, dancing, lots of music, having them reenact plays, even puppets. I think puppets are amazing, giving children puppets and they really, express themselves in so many ways using those. Bibliotherapy. Okay, I can't talk enough about books. It's my go-to coping tool. Bibliotherapy is when books are used to help children in overcoming problems by having them read stories about characters who have successfully resolved a problem that's similar to their own. It's a wonderful tool to help prepare children for any upcoming changes or events in their lives by introducing it through a book. It kind of helps to normalize the situation a little bit. The goals of bibliotherapy is to help children identify and validate their feelings, realize that there are other children in this world who have problems that are similar to their own. They're not feeling isolated. They're not feeling alone in this. It also helps to start a discussion about it. It helps them to find perhaps a coping skill or solution through that story. So these are all great reasons why we can use books to introduce things like that to children. A fun fact is the word bibliotherapy is actually a combination of the Greek word for book and healing. Right? Put it together, and we all know that books do and can heal, not just children, us adults as well. And there's so many resources out there. That's what I love. I mean, anything that you're trying to deal with, or anything you're trying to, introduce to a child, there's a book to it. All I say is just please make sure you read the book beforehand, before introducing it to the child. If there's a specific book that you want to use for a child to introduce a certain issue, I would also discuss it with the parent if it's a particular child that you are going to be introducing that to. Some books that are my go-tos are The Rainbow Bridge for loss of a pet, Eddie's Brave Journey for grief and loss. I know the author, and she's experienced grief and loss in her childhood. So this is something that she wrote, and it's an amazing book. For chronic illness for a child, Tiger Levy is also an amazing resource. Play. Okay, we all know that play is a child's natural mechanism for coping, right? It gives them the power and control over happenings that they don't fully understand, right? I will give you an example. I don't know if you remember, but in 2008, in the summer, there was an oil spill. And I remember being at a local lake and seeing children there, making their sandcastles as usual. And over again, I would hear them shout, spill, oil spill. And other scenarios that were reflecting of the current issue. Now, how they heard of it, media, TV, I don't know, but they were actually using that in their play. Similarly, after September 11th, many teachers reported that children were reenacting tower collapsing in their block play. So just as adults have unconscious coping mechanisms for dealing with trauma, children naturally use creative and imaginary play to cope. As Lawrence Cohen really aptly put this, children don't say, I've had a hard day, can we talk? Not a lot of adults say that as well. But children say, will you play with me? And we need to take those opportunities when they come up and say, will you play with me? Because they obviously need you at that time. Okay, so another thing that I like to integrate as a coping skill is sensory integration. Sensory coping tools focus on a child's senses to help them regulate their emotions and to help center themselves. Now, there are some ideas here for touch. You can use the mermaid fabric, the sequences that you can kind of roll back and forth. Children love that. Using hand warmers or Play-Doh and slime that we normally use in the classroom are great for the touch sense. For the taste, having them eat something chewy or sour, or even a glass of water sometimes works great. The sense of smell, using calming scents like lavender, adding it in some water play or in Play-Doh or slime. For the visual, giving them to watch a lava lamp or a sensory bottle that you might have made, dimming down the lights or turning them completely off. For the auditory, listening to sounds like the birds chirping or the ocean waves. So things like that, even just simple white noise can be really calming for children. So here on the screen, you're going to see some coping toolboxes that we created. Childhood Matters. Coping skills toolbox is an actual physical container, or it can be a bag even, that houses these items that children can use to help calm down and express their emotions in healthy ways. Having a toolbox is one way to keep several of these tools ready and available to use. You can make your own. You can use breathing techniques in there. You can put in props, books, stress balls, other featured items. I mean, the list is endless. You can add so many things, keep switching it around. Have the toolbox available so children know where to find it. It's like a mental health first aid box, right? Children know where to go if they're feeling dysregulated. They know that they're right there and they're able to use them. And they don't have to be, dysregulated to use this. I feel that if we have these items readily available at all times and children are practicing more and more using this becomes natural to them. They know when to use it then. So it's not something that's only there, oh, it's special because you're not feeling quite, regulated right now. No, it doesn't have to be like that. So as I end, I want to just quickly say that children's earliest experience may stick with them for years and continue to influence them well into adulthood, their mental and emotional well-being, social relationships, and even their physical health. This is why social emotional learning and early intervention is of utmost importance. And I always say what happens in childhood does not stay in childhood. And that's why that early intervention is important, right? On my next screen, I have my email address. I have the website information. The good news is, and I think you guys are the first ones that I'm sharing this with. I haven't even shared this on my Instagram or anything, but we are in the process of going nonprofit. We want to be able to reach as many families and children as we can who need these coping skills and strategies. And we are really excited that we are on this journey to be able to help so many people out there. We are constantly in touch with child life specialists who are dealing with children in hospitals with chronic illnesses, and families and siblings who are going through this with them. So there's so many children who need these resources. Parents don't know where to find them. Parents might not have the time to go. I mean, if your child is ill, you're not really looking for those resources. So we want to make sure that these are readily available for families and children to use. So I'm really excited that we're going to be able to reach out in that way. I also wanted to offer in our newsletters every month, we actually send out tons of free resources that you can print and use with children. Sometimes they're printable, activities that you can use. So you can absolutely join in on our website and subscribe, and you'll get those free in your mailbox once a month. We have amazing resources for parents as well. So if you are a parent, or if you know of a parent who might be able to use these resources, please direct them to us. We want to be able to reach out to them. Okay, so thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate you listening through and being with me here today.